Hi, I'm Heather Roberts, and I'm introducing the update for my dissertation, Faculty Perceptions of Their Roles in Student Retention at an Online University. So my dissertation is looking at how we faculty are supported in our roles with student retention and persistence within this disaggregated model that I work in. So the goal is in this qualitative phenomenological action research design is to interview faculty, get their perceptions, identify practical strategies that support student success. I've combined that with that action research cycle to help me capture and interpret their feelings and input on their impact on retention, but while also looking at the components of the action research arm to help me with the issues directly by gathering their insights and reflections on what they do in their daily work as a way to be collaborative with the program mentors, so CIs, the course instructors. We all have to collaborate and work together, and like how does that impact the student retention persistence? Like, do we have more time to be collaborative, and does that impact then that role, our disaggregated role, and then how we engage with the students, does it make an impact? So that's kind of where the action research part is going by looking at those reflections and those small interventions, and does it have an impact? So current status where I am right now is I have an IRB approval, and my university has given me permission to use my college as a focus area, not the entire university, but just my college. We're going to go narrow it down to just that. I have chapters 1 through 3 completed. I've revised them. I'm still going back through them because it seems like every time I go back through it, I find just a spacing issue or a format issue. So I'm constantly reviewing to make sure that I catch all those things. So I do go back through it quite often. So interview protocols, focus group protocols, the consent forms, reflection logs, all of my forms that I need, I have in my appendices of my dissertation, and I plan on implementing those forms that I already have made. So that's their 16-week implementation timeline. I've already developed that and have it sketched out, so that way I'm following more like a project management approach to this, so that way I stay on task. Gantt chart is basically what I'm using. Like, this is my window to get this done, this is my window to get that done, and really trying to stay very intentional with my time and on track. That is my goal. Um, and then the recruitment system and data management processes, I've been working on that and making sure that I can learn the transcription and analysis software now, instead of trying to learn it and use it at the same time as I'm putting in interviews, expecting transcription and themes and coding to come out the other end. So I'm trying to learn stuff up front, so that way it tries to decrease that stress and um, issue that I might have later if I can get into it now and start using it versus learning and doing all at the same time. So challenges and barriers. That is part of my challenges and barriers, is making sure that I stay on time and then using the software, learning it now versus later, and recruiting enough faculty to participate. That's one of the barriers or challenges that I might have. I don't anticipate that to be a problem, but it could be because of going into the summer months. So that's something I'm least aware of, and I'm hoping that it won't be an issue. Coordinating the action research focus group and that intervention process, I'm looking at that as a potential issue just because of time, like trying to find time for a whole bunch of people to get into the same space. So that is something I'm working on, and I'm hoping that once I get the participants and look at their schedules, that we can all come to an agreement on some sort of like time where we either meet for lunch and do it at lunch hour when we all are not working and not on office time or work time, and then or on weekends or evenings if that's a possibility. So those are the options that I have for that. And then just my ability to maintain my momentum. So that is something else I'm looking at. So, strategies to address all of my challenges. So, to mitigate these challenges and barriers that I've identified, I'm using Excel to create my spreadsheet, my Gantt chart, to track my participants. I'm blocking time in my calendar. I've got family on board with like what I need for them to do so I can do these things and balance my life work balance with family and commitments I have to do. So, working with that and then working with my work. So those are my strategies of like trying to mitigate any like outliers that might come up. Participants will, after we do the interview process and the focus groups, they'll be able to go through, look at the transcripts, make sure that I've caught any erroneous errors or things that are not transcribed correctly, allow them to give me feedback if there's anything that I need to fix or clarifications before I take that information and put it into the transcription program. So that's what I'm looking at for strategies to address any challenges, but keep that with member blocking or that rolling member blocking and also doing a reflexive journal to allow me to keep track of what I'm doing throughout the study and trying to mitigate any bias of that I could interject into the interview process. Because I am a program mentor, I will be working with program mentors in the study. I don't want to input any of my thoughts or feelings of like how I do my job onto them. So I want to be very mindful of putting any of that into the reflexive journal so that way I can check myself before I go into that interview and then check myself when I come out of the interview, like how did that go? Anything that I felt, any of that stuff that might occur. So that's how I'm addressing that by doing the reflexive journal. I've already have that set up to where I'm journaling for that and keeping track of that. So that is already in play. And then early organization of my folders and data management systems. So I will be monitoring that and my timeline with my milestones. So that's where I'm at. If you have any questions or feedback, I'm all for understanding or receiving that feedback. So that way, if there's something I'm not seeing, that I can get that in return. So, but at this point, I do feel that I'm very prepared to begin the implementation part of my dissertation. My immediate next steps is getting my flyers out, recruiting participants, schedule the interviews, and really try to dive into that sooner than later, initiate that data collection, and then maintaining that structured workflow and monitoring my progress throughout the study. So that is the plan. And I really feel confident that I can keep this project aligned and within the timeline that I need to be in. So that is everything I have for my update. Thank you so much.